Hi, this is Barb Crowley, and welcome to Metaphysics: A View Through the Veil. Today, we're talking to Elizabeth Monroy, who is another host with Voice America, a sister host. She is also an international author, film director, producer, and visionary artist. Her genres include children's books, romance novels, and her latest book, which we're going to talk about, is The Infinite Human, an ascension guide for awakened infinite human beings, star seeds, twin souls, and the co-creators of the infinite new 5D Earth. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you.
And thank you so much for asking me. What a beautiful introduction. Very well
Oh,
done.
good. Thank you. Hey,
Yeah.
so how did you tell me your story? How did you get here? We were just talking about, I have to say, right before we came on, that Elizabeth lives in Sicily, although she's an American. And how did you get here? We were talking food too. But tell me your story of how did you get to where you are, and how did you get really to write The Infinite Human? And what is the infinite human? Have I given you enough to talk
Okay.
about?
Well, yeah, I could talk the whole hour on
Yeah,
it. But anyway,
good.
and I always like to kind of set the tone, and I do this on my show too, because I feel like it sparks a certain divine, infinite spark inside of us. So when I start my videos, whatever, I always say, hello, you divine, infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And that's the most important message, I think, is to realize we really are infinite.
Mhm.
And what is infinite? That's like the first word. And that's how I started writing the book 30 years ago. I was working on my master's in mental health counseling, and I was typing a paper, and all of a sudden I started typing the words, there is emerging on the face of the earth a new human, an infinite human. And then my computer got struck by lightning. And I turned to my husband, and I'm like, what does this mean? What is infinite human? And my husband was OBGYN, an obstetrician gynecologist, and he was really into,
Mhm.
computers at that time. This is 30 years ago, 1990.
Yeah.
He bought me a laptop that was like the size of a sewing machine, a portable sewing machine. And he's like, I don't know, but he retrieved the paper, and I turned it into my professor, and he said, this is kooky. So I ended up meeting, we met our spiritual teachers who were also twin souls. And I said, what is infinite human? And she said, oh, file that away, like it's not for
Mhm.
now, it's for the future. But basically, I started, writing the book for many years, and it's really my story, So if you
Yeah.
ask me where I live, why I live, I've lived all over the world. My husband was a board certified OBGYN who, had a private practice up in Hyannisport, and saw like the Kennedys and all this. And he left, he ended up moving away, and his wife kind of kicked him out. And he was in Miami. I'd been living in Italy, and we met on a beach. And I wrote about that. And we wrote about that in our book, The Pathway Home. And, first we were very kind of repelled with each other, but we couldn't I was like, oh, nice meeting you, but I'm off to LA. I'm going to become a famous writer, director, and movie star. See you later. And, when I got there, I talked about LA in my book, that the first thing they do is they hand you a porno script. And if you take it, you move upward. If you don't, okay, that's it. So then everything was going south. And so my husband, I went back to him, but that started our journey. And really the whole book is about our journey together, and how after we kind of built our dream home in Florida, and we're at the height of, I was a mental health counselor and he was a doctor. We said, there's got to be more. We felt so empty, I mean, we had all the material things. And that's when we ended up heading west, and we just left our dream home and put our 3 dogs in a little RV and went out to the Indian reservation. And we started working with the Native Americans, and
Yeah.
we met the Hopi out there. And,
There's
that
some
was very
major
powerful.
energy out there, isn't there?
Oh boy,
the
and
reservations.
the
It's
Hopi
like,
have the whole
whoa.
prophecy, which corresponds with what I was getting. I think we're all getting through the veil pieces of these
Mhm.
puzzles, and it's so
Right.
interesting because there has been a veil, but we're all getting puzzle pieces, and I think we're all coming together now. And
Mhm.
the Hopi, of course, and the Native Americans have the prophecy of, there will come a time when the waters are polluted, the birds are falling from the sky, the
Oh
food
my God.
is
Yeah.
contaminated, that the rainbow warriors will emerge and make the earth green again and reconnect with our Mother Earth. And so I
Who
learned
were
that
the
from them.
Rainbow Warriors? Who were the
We,
Rainbow
the
Warriors?
infinite humans. See, for
Oh,
me,
okay.
it's the
Good.
infinite. I
Thanks
was
for
saying infinite
telling me.
humans.
Wouldn't have gotten it, to be honest. Okay, good. So we're gonna
Well,
do this,
well,
huh?
there are then and like you said, what is infinite? What are the infinite humans and all that? So, um, I guess first of all, people always say, what is infinite? And my mother's like, Elizabeth, you keep talking about infinite for like 30 years. What I don't understand what infinite is. So to understand it, you have to really understand the true nature of our multiverse, and you have to understand really beyond the veil. Okay, and the truth is that we have had a veil put in place,
Uh-huh.
and the truth is we are infinite, which means I am. Okay, let me go back for a minute. My first chapter talks about how my father was a minister. I was raised by a minister, and
Mhm.
but he just began to grow out of the religion,
Yeah.
and but we
Yeah.
would always go on retreats, like while everyone else was going whatever. We would go on like spiritual retreats with other ministers and stuff. And I was talking to a minister once. I was like 12 years old, and we were paired off doing like kind of seeking spiritual exercises, and he told me he thought the word God had been really over, misused and abused, and it's lost
Right.
its real
Right.
meaning. He said, I think we need another word.
Mhm.
So,
We do.
in my 20s, I came up with infinite, because infinite's all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. It was given to me. That word just
Mhm.
was given to me. So I meditated on it very much. And the truth is our true nature is infinite, but there are many, we'll just call them like, and our true nature is divine, and our true nature is angelic. Okay. We
Mhm.
are angelic divine beings.
Right.
But there are those that chose to, with no judgment, even though sometimes it's hard, they chose to separate themselves from the infinite divine, that like the vine of life, okay? And
Mhm.
like a piece of fruit that is plucked from the vine, it begins to rot and decay, because they cannot get that infinite
The
connection
juice.
to source.
Yeah, they
Yes.
can't get the juice. Yeah.
I can't get
Or
the juice. So
the
where do they
yeah.
get the juice? I love that word. My
Yeah.
brother talked about juice. I said, "What's juice?" He goes, "You got to pay juice. Juice is like
Yeah,
the
the energy
banker's
that makes
word
it
for,
work. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the interest, I'm
Mhm.
like, juice. So where
Yeah.
do they get their juice? They
Uh-huh.
get their juice from us. And that's the parasitic, and I call them the fallen angelics, or the parasites, just parasites. So we've been in a veil,
Mhm.
cut off ourselves, because what they did was they pulled us down with them, and
Yeah.
they cut it off so we couldn't get back to our power source,
Mhm.
and they began to parasite off of us,
Yeah.
and that's the planet we have. I call it 3D. That's the planet that I don't live there really that much, but you have to do it when
The
you're like
rest of
paying
us
for
do
things,
though,
and when
huh?
you're, yeah, but I
Yeah.
try to extract myself as much as possible, and
Mhm.
that's why we're creating a new earth. That's part of my mission, to get
Uh-huh.
out of that. But the banking system, the governmental system of so much, bullshit, really, and
Yeah.
the religious systems where, here I'm in Catholic land, where they're so wealthy, and it's just, I just watched The Godfather 3 last night, and that was so right on. He goes, the
Yeah.
higher up you go, the worse the mafia is. So
Uh-huh.
I think most people are waking up to the idea that there is a mafia, black hand, as we say in Sicily, the black hand that controls our planet.
Mhm.
So
Right. And as I said earlier, I'm from New Jersey. So, I'm kind of familiar with all that
Well,
on
the
the
town I
United
live
States
in
side.
here,
Yeah.
in the town I live in Casadamare, actually is where the true Michael Corleone, the true Godfather, came
Oh,
from.
really? Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
came here, there was no Americans, but the only Americans that came over in the summer were the Sicilian Americans from the families in New York. So, what family are you from? I'm like, well, I'm just,
I
American,
always said
real
that
American.
because I'm Irish descent. My background heritage is Irish, and I always said the Irish and the Italians have to live together because the Italians can cook and the Irish can't. But that's old. Now they cook great, but that's old. But
Yeah, and they got along well. And you're a
yeah.
ginger. You're a ginger. Meaning you hold higher genetics. You hold very high genetics. So,
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah.
we'll talk about that.
How did
But
you said you
but
wrote the book with Peter who passed in 2005. So how did you do that?
well, we worked together a lot. And well, we were twin souls. I mean,
Hmm.
and the truth about twin souls, and I talk a lot about that in my book and in my podcast, people don't understand is that you are that original spark, that separates the same soul seed, the
Hmm.
highest form of the twin soul. And so then descend in frequency into form, into matter, you have a body and all that. And when you can, and it's really hard to come together because, again, with this veil, the parasites, the last thing they want is for twin souls to find each other, and they scramble the timelines and they do everything. In fact, if one of my guests talked about the Adjustment Bureau, which I'm going to review, but it's a movie about how they keep trying to separate this couple that find each other. And all twin souls are always very, very attacked. And but when you get together, it's like yeah. I say, I'm sending you a T-mail. We call it T-mails, the telepathy mails. I mean,
Oh,
we'd
okay.
never do
Yeah.
anything. So
Hmm.
we'd never do something silly like, okay, I'm going to meet you here in an hour. I mean, we never had to do anything like that. We were so telepathized. If I needed something, I'd just send him a message, pick up some milk, or I love you.
Hmm.
We'd know we were one. We were one,
So when you
and
wrote the
we did
book,
so much.
Peter was there with you then.
Yeah. So when his body wasn't there anymore,
It didn't matter.
we wrote in the physical a lot. I'd write
Mhm.
something and I hand it over to him and he'd hand it back, And so by the time he wasn't there, in fact, I love to write because I feel very close to him. But he's with me all the time now. So, I mean, he does a lot for me, and it was very, very, as you can imagine, heart wrenching. And I talk about it in my book of just the
Yeah, the grief
death,
and the
because death
heartbreak.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
death is and a couple that makes love every day, that's constantly with each other's physical body. I mean, was huge, and I'm not going to spiritually bypass that was huge. But now, finally, as the veil is being lifted, as
Mhm.
we're accruing more of our genetics, as we're reassimilating our 12 strands of DNA and accessing the higher dimensions, we're together much more. And I understand the logic of it. I understand that he couldn't stay in the physical with me because physically we held too much frequency together. We ran frequency into the earth and to the people around us. And now he has such a higher perspective on things. Yeah, I mean, it's really great because, like, should I buy this? Should I go here, there? Should I do this? It's like it just comes up, the
Mhm.
signs and symbols, which we learn together how to. I mean, there's certain signs and symbols. If I hear Cuban music, I know Peter's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was Cuban. Or Peter Pan, that was a huge theme with him. Or I just know his signature. I know it's when
Hmm.
it's here and he wants me to pay attention to this person that's talking to me, or he'll talk through other people. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a
Yeah.
veil. It's a veil. I love that.
Hmm.
I love that. A view through
Yeah.
the veil.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Mm.
so you've gone out of religion, even though you grew up with it. But how do you meet you have a thing in your book about meeting our spiritual teachers. How do we meet our spiritual teachers?
Well, okay, so this is a journey, I always call
Uh-huh.
it the hero's journey. So,
Right.
there's a beginning, the middle, and it's developmental. In fact, last week, Monday, I just did a thing about spiritual teachers. So, and I quoted in my book, The Truth About Spiritual Teachers is my next chapter. When the student is ready, the spiritual
Will
teacher
appear. Yeah.
appears.
Yeah. And tell me about
And then the second,
yours,
okay.
your spiritual teacher.
Um, okay, Peter and I, we started, well, he was very hard-headed at first. And
Mhm.
he was like, I don't even know if I believe in God. And I thought, what am I going to do with this person? Because I was,
Yeah.
always very, but he
How
saw
did you
Shirley
get together?
MacLaine's. Yeah. But we met on a beach. It was just kind of destined. And we ended up getting together, believe it or not, even though I tried everything I could to not, be with
Mhm.
him. But it's like this cosmic glue kept us together. And I
Yeah.
just didn't know what to do. But he saw Shirley MacLaine's movie Out on the Limb. I don't know. I always like to
Oh, I
pay
remember
respects to
that.
this.
Yeah.
And he had like out of body experiences and all these things he couldn't explain. And he just thought, he was a doctor. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. And when he saw that,
Right.
he realized, oh my God, this is real stuff. And so
Mhm.
he started to study it. And we went to the Canary Islands where he's from, and I used to work with crystals. I love crystals, and from
Mhm.
another lifetime I would lay crystals on people and work with the energy, healing them. And I laid the crystals on him one day and left and went into the kitchen to cook something, and he came in and he had like this kundalini experience where
Oh,
the
wow.
energy starts in your groin, comes up through your body, and it's like this electrical bolt.
Mhm. Blows the circuits
And
often. Blows the circuits. Yeah, often it
and
blows the
he could
circuits, and
not,
some people don't survive it really, even mentally.
some people don't
Yeah.
survive, and
Yeah.
and a lot of people in the mental institutions, because
Right. That's what I
it
mean. They
pierces
don't
the
survive
veil.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
But that that was not in his medical books.
Hmm.
He could
Right.
not explain that. So at that point, he said, okay, he was brilliant. He had gotten MIT, a degree in engineering, offered a job to work with NASA designing nuclear submarines, turned it down and decided to go to med school and went to Tufts, one of the top med schools.
Yeah.
Well, he began studying metaphysics with the favor of a serious student. So we were there. We brought books with us to the Canary Islands, like cases, because this was before internet, like
Right.
downloading books.
Before
And
Kindle.
didn't even
Yeah.
have that. No.
Yeah.
So we would read books. We found this passage that said, when the student is ready. So we asked, please, we want to meet our spiritual teachers, put it out there. The next thing you know, we were taking a writing class. And actually, I was writing this book, and he was
Mhm.
writing his book, The Pathway Home. And at
Mhm.
the end of the writing week that we had taken that class, and it was funny because he never would take classes like that, but he said he
Yeah.
wanted to. The teacher said, my guides are just bothering me. I have to tell you about my spiritual teachers. One's male, they're twin souls. One's a female, one's black, one's white, one's like Irish, tall.
Mhm.
Vulcan. He was actually, Spock was based on him. And the other was, kind of like the woman in hair with the afro singing the song Aquarius, and
Yeah.
they were an amazing couple. They could do stuff. They could do some things like teleport. They could come
Mhm.
into our dreams and work with us. I mean, they could do stuff, but their disclosure was kind of limited, and I think they weren't allowed to say as much, so so anyway, but they were twin souls, and he also had to leave. He left the moment the twin towers fell. So I think he kind of helped pull those souls that wanted to out of the net, rather than what it was designed to do, pull a lot of them down into phantom, to the lower areas, to, not a good thing. He helped to free them, because he left at that moment. It's like, okay, gotta go. And
Mhm.
and I worked with them a lot. But after Patrick was finished, died, however you call it, passed on, ascended, really. Peter kind of pulled away from Sharon, And then, the second part of the quote is when, when the student is ready, the teacher
Right.
we're there. When the student is really ready, the teacher disappears. So, and that's what my book's all about, always
Yeah,
leading
tell
you
me
back to,
that. Tell me that. What do you mean? What does that mean when the student is really ready, the teacher disappears? They don't
because
need the teacher?
it's
I'm a neophyte here, so
exactly,
you know.
well, because we've had a veil
Hmm.
and we've needed, and one of the chapters in my books that I just read, the thing is that, throughout history, we have, I mean, just real briefly, I'll just say this part. So
Yeah,
we
no,
have
that's
looked
good.
to spiritual teachers, priests, priestess, shamans, witch doctors, sorcerers, magicians, witches, warlocks, ministers, preachers, pastors, sorcerers, magicians, on and on, swami, psychics, therapists, fortune tellers, healers, life coaches, TV and village celebrities, newscasters, presidents, speakers, experts, on and on. And the reason being is because, like cell phones, we've
Hmm.
had our SIM card removed. So we had to look externally. And we've had some good ones. I always pay respects to all those who came before me because they pierced the veil and they would give us some bits of information, but they could only go so high themselves.
Yeah.
But now I bring you tidings of great joy. The good news is, and I write it in my book, okay, you are now getting your SIM card activated, your organic SIM card,
Uh-huh.
you can now reconnect. The veil is being lifted and we
Hmm.
are able to return to the greatness that we were.
Why only some? Because, when you look
Why was
around,
what?
not everybody, why only some people? Why not everybody?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we began talking about that at the beginning, right? Some people are encrypted. Okay. Okay. Many of us, the age of Aquarius, the
Maybe, do
true
you want
age
to
of
go back
Aquarius.
to the cycles of creation, ascension, and the great year before we go into why only some? Will that be a better basis?
Yeah, it's all tied in. It's all
Okay.
related.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are some, and that's why the book only, I'm not trying to sell my book, but I am trying to make people aware
No,
of it because
but yeah,
some
no, I want to
people,
hear all
yeah,
about
some
your book and
people
what's in it.
need to
Yeah.
read it because it's encrypted with a
Uh-huh.
wake up call because there are some souls, very high souls, and we don't know who we are. That's the
Right.
thing. You don't know. It doesn't matter if you have a degree or if you're a dishwasher or
Mm-hmm.
an accountant, or you don't have to have anything spiritual. It's just that you agreed to be here at this time during the ascension cycle of the
Right.
we'll talk about next because it's the timing and the souls. They have agreed to be here at this pivotal time in our history,
Mm-hmm.
and be the shift. And many of them came from another, when I say time matrix, okay, I'm talking about like
Another
our time
dimension.
matrix is made of
Yeah.
our time matrix is made of 15 dimensions, 5 harmonic universes, and that's just our time matrix alone. So they came beyond the beyond from another time matrix
Mm-hmm.
that's much more evolved to help out in this time. And it was in the time matrix is called Aquinos. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
true age of Aquarius, not the zodiac sign. It's
Oh, okay.
certain highly evolved, highly genetically encrypted to have this encryption to wake up and to be all that they could be, to embody the the Christ body, the Christos body, and
Mm-hmm.
be the change in this time frame. Okay, so what is this time frame? That's the next, right?
Right.
This time frame is huge. Procession of the equinox is a small part of it. Okay, but it's like this plus this plus this plus this. And when I tell you all these
Yeah.
elements
We're on we're on audio. Like you're showing me,
oh,
in
sorry.
on visual.
There's so
Yeah.
many pieces that are
Yeah.
coming together. I'm Italian. I have to talk with my
Yeah,
hands.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not Italian, but I mean, I live here.
Yeah, but the
So
hand gestures you're
yeah,
into.
yeah.
Yeah.
With all these, I'm going to tell you just some of all the things that have come together to
Yeah,
make this
do.
a
Yeah.
major shift. It's huge. But a lot of people know about the precession of the equinox, that we have now entered into a photon belt. Okay.
See, I know
That is the
nothing about
highest.
it. I know nothing about it.
Okay.
So,
Well, on a
this is who you're
on a
talking to.
smaller level, there's a precession of the equinox, which we go around a clock. And when we get into a certain portion of that clock, you can't see it by my hands, but you will actually start to pick up more and more energy of a higher frequency. And in the rotation of the planets, you will actually, in the cosmos, you will actually come in to a belt of the highest known light, which is photonic light. And you come into a belt of energy, the photon belt. So that's part of it, that we are now being bathed by this photonic light of very high frequency. That's just a small part of it, though. And that has to do with the precession of the equinox. We also have Yugos that are in place that are, another time frame that is all coming together. It's like they're
What are
all meeting
Yugos?
at,
What are
say,
Yugos? I'm sorry to.
Yugos are, they're really, I just listened to a video on that. They're really Ayugos, but in ancient Hindu word, they call them Yugos. And they're actually, again, bands of time. Okay. First of all, you got to understand time's an illusion. Time doesn't exist. But when you enter a time matrix, you do create time to learn about yourself. It's like you create story. You have a beginning, middle, and end, and it's all the infinite learning about itself through us. We're its expressions. Okay.
Mhm.
So Yugos are also elements of time. Okay. And we've just left a very heavy, dark Yugo and moved into a Yugo, a time unit of much higher light frequency vibration. Okay. So things are getting better. Now, that's part of it too. Again, we have been, though, in this kind of time matrix war going on between the good, and we can call it good and evil, but it's really the highest level. There's no duality. Okay. But we've had, we position ourselves in one way, and the FA, the parasites, try to keep us down because they need their food, basically they need their energy. We're like in the matrix, the battery that they have been feeding on. So every time we start to get out with these natural cycles, they have technology, but artificial technology, but not like what we think, a cell phone and the internet. I mean, they have technology where they can move, and they have planets and solar systems, and they've distorted it. So these natural time loops, these natural spirals that return us back to source, that pierce the veil, have been co-opted by them, they've
Mhm.
maneuvered it so that we aren't doing that. For example, our planet, it's not supposed to have a wobble. Earth is not supposed to have a wobble. And likewise, other planets are out of alignment. So we're not getting the correct influx of energy, or not archangels.
Mhm.
They've co-opted to they're archangels, and the angles come in and they actually hit our bodies and activate us, into the higher dimensions.
Mhm.
So anyway, the good news is there's been a fail-safe plan that has kicked in, that was actually constructed into this time matrix, because our time matrix began to deviate from the true pathway, the
Uh-huh.
true spiral, okay, of
Yeah.
that it should be in, the true rotations, the true energetic, ascension back into source. And because of this interference, this infection
But why
from
aren't we
the fallen.
powerful, or the group, putting me in the good group, why are we not powerful
Yeah.
enough? Why are they more powerful than we are? Because they seem to be able to throw the earth onto a wobble, be sending us, hitting us with these energies to not allow us to move to the next time zone. Why are they more powerful than us?
They are not.
So then why are they
Don't
impacting us?
ever believe that. They are not more powerful. They have, okay, so at the highest spiritual level, we are infinite knowing itself. Okay. When our this little time matrix that we're in, okay, there's actually a structure to it, was infected by the other parallel time matrices, there was a decision made to let this go ahead and play itself out. Because in reality, there is no time. Our infinite, everything is happening all at once. So it's like stories. My first chapters were all stories in the mind of God. So it's
Mhm.
a story. I mean, there really is no death. There's just change
Yeah.
of form. And even the bad and suffering is something to be learned by the infinite. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot in my hour of
Oh, of
darkness,
course.
dark
Yeah.
night of the
I mean,
soul.
nobody grows
And
without pain. I really don't think so.
yes, well,
Yeah, you got
I
to have
think I like
pain
to do it
for any
without
growth.
pain now,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It doesn't seem like if I'm
I'm ready to do it
comfortable, I'm not
without pain.
changing a thing. Yeah. Yeah.
But the guardians or the or us, even us, the higher aspects of us as infinite, saw this fall was occurring. So they said, okay, we're going to let it play itself out for them to learn about themselves, because we're not, you would rob people of their free will. Free will, that's what we have in this universe.
Hmm.
So, but they put in this safety mechanism that if things get really, really bad, rather than because the whole experiment could have just imploded to the point where we would become like not be able to return as we are now, with our memories, with our lessons, with what we've learned, but we return as in the innocence of like space dust, back without the memories.
We're
We
wiped
still
out,
always
kind
return to
of.
God's
We're
source,
wiped out.
but if you
Yeah.
get too far gone, there's a point where they just can't bring you back with your integrity, which is now we're having the opportunity to go back with all that we've learned,
Hmm.
bringing back at the hero's journey, the elixir that we've learned at the end of the journey. This is what we've learned. Oh my God, it was terrible. It was great. It was awful. It was
I
wonderful.
put it with the roller coaster, like you go
Yeah.
through this roller coaster ride. It scares you to death. And you're freaked out by it. And then you get to the end and you think, "Ooh, that was fun. Let's do that again." It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
And that's what I think
Yeah,
life
yeah.
is in a
But halfway
way. Yeah.
through, you're about to throw up and you're
Oh
like,
my
get me
God,
off.
you're
What did I do?
terrified. Yeah, and you just want off
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
want to hide. But then you get to the end. Oh, that was fun.
But
Let's do
then you're
that
like,
again. Yeah. I
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if I want to do this one again though, because this has been one hell of a ride. But
Yeah.
but anyway, the safety, what happened is it had to get so bad. And I think most people with any awareness look around today. I mean, things like,
That's the
you
thing.
know,
Yeah.
violence and murder, and even we're not so even supposed to have dis-ease. We're not even supposed to age and die. We're supposed to take our bodies with us as we return up the stairway of heaven back up to the higher dimensions. And all this
But has that ever been
what's
true on Earth? Has that ever been true? There's always been disease and death on the Earth plane. There's always been.
No, 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 no. And that's what I write about, the hidden history. The biggest thing I think that people can learn and I talk about our history. It's all been a
Okay, tell me
veil, a
about the
put up a
hidden
job.
history. Tell me about the
Well,
hidden
okay,
history.
so Earth, we've heard of Gaia. Gaia is actually where the seventh dimensional, but the fifth dimensional Earth was called Tara.
Hmm.
Like Tara, Gone with the Wind. The name
Yeah,
Tara,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Tara, actually, that's when one of the worst falls happened. They actually, it was kind of it's like Atlantis, Lemuria. Some people know about that, but it's been we've been caught in
Yeah,
this.
no, I've had guests on talking about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
Sorry. Yeah.
Atlantis and Lemuria kept happening over and over because we've been caught in a time loop since then. Then it
But
was
how did
called
we get in
Mu.
the time loop? What happened?
Okay, so again, okay, let me just go back to they're not more powerful than us. They just are more motivated than we are, because we were at that time living on 5D Earth. We were, first of all, breatharians. We didn't, have to eat or kill things or things like that.
Mhm.
We were in total and complete harmony. We would tone, and I went to Malta, and they had goddess temples, and they were giants, that created these temples. They hid the history, but it's hard to hide that part.
Yeah.
And they would, had memories of that. So we would hold, especially the divine feminine energy, the planet in complete loving harmony with unity consciousness. I mean, it was just over the
The
rainbow.
Garden
It
of
was like
Eden, basically the Garden of Eden.
gardens of Eden. It
Yeah.
was beautiful. We were 12 stranded, so we didn't die. We uh it was balanced. It was very balanced, but there were factions that started to use AI,
Mhm.
to the crystalline. We had crystals that did technology, and they started to shift that, and it took us off balance, and it caused like the pole shifts. It caused the
Right.
wobbles, and eventually it actually caused the whole planet to implode and
Mhm.
go through a black hole, and it came out into a lower harmonic universe. And also part of it ripped, we were part of Andromeda, then the galaxy of Andromeda, and it ripped the Milky Way from Andromeda. And so what we see now outside of us, the Milky Way, our solar system was all one huge planet, and it's
Mhm.
in a fallen harmonic universe, and it caps us off from our eternal infinite parts of ourselves.
Mhm.
So when that happened, many of us, the lost souls of Tara, many of us have come here to help them return, but that's when the parasites took advantage of us, because we were in our we were, when you're wounded, you know how it is
Right.
when
You're
people are
weak. You're
down.
weak. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're weak, the
Yeah. Yeah.
parasites, they always find you, right? It's like
Right.
the poor little animals that are hurt, they end up becoming prey for
Mhm.
everyone else. So that's when they were not more powerful than us. They were much less powerful than us, because we had infinite source, our direct connection. We could manifest
So we
instantaneously,
weakened ourselves, and then the parasites were able to come in.
because we're all one.
Yeah.
Those the parasites were our brothers and sisters, many of them. Some
Mhm.
of them were actually us that went in to try to rescue the other fallen ones.
Okay.
And many of
Yeah.
us said, or many of us were up there in the higher dimensions going, how can these people do those awful things? Let's go down there and see. And so we went down there out of curiosity, and we ended up getting in you know how it is. It's like,
We
I watched The
stayed.
Godfather the other night, and Michael Corleone's like, just when I think I'm getting out, I get pulled back in. How
Yeah.
many of us have gotten pulled into our family feuds, our family arguments, and you swore you would never do that again, and you see yourself screaming over the Thanksgiving turkey, right?
Yeah. Same conversations for 50 years. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
So that is the hidden history of the earth. Is that what you call the hidden history of the earth?
yes, and there's so much to it. I mean, I had someone come in and talk about their Tartarian architecture. These, like, for example, here, there's these beautiful cathedrals,
Hmm.
St. Peter's, you see these actually,
Yeah.
the truth is that was from Tara, and those were not Catholic churches. Those were resonating chambers that would pull the energy from the ethers and provide energy, electricity for the communities.
Hmm. Is
And
that
I
why
mean,
there are domes? Is that
yes,
yeah?
exactly.
Yeah.
And the crosses aren't crosses. The crosses are to pull the ethers, and they were healing chambers, resonating chambers. I mean,
Why do
it's
they
so
not
fascinating
work
when
anymore though? Why do they not work anymore?
because the parasites came in, they conquered, like the Romans. The Romans
Hmm.
were raider races. They came in and they killed all the Christic tribes who were holding this information that was first in Citadori plates. They were in CD plates, and this is what the true Christ, Yeshua, 12, who had 12 strands of DNA, was writing down all this information. They would come and they would hide it, and they were scattered throughout the planet. Ireland was a safe refuge for them for many times. But when the races, I mean, I'm talking about the first true Jewish tribes, they were raided by what we call now they're not the real Jewish tribes, the real Christic Jewish tribes. We had the Vikings, the Normans, these are all raider races. They're Leviathan, Anunnaki raider races. The Romans went in and they what they did, and you can see it. The rape of the Sabine women. There's a statue in Florence. They would kill the men. They would rape the women for their genetics to breed their own race of warriors.
To intermingle,
and they would steal. Yes. And then they would steal all the sacred documents that are now under the Vatican in a hermetically sealed library. We saw the Da Vinci Code of 52 miles. That's all the truth that was.
I would love to get in the Vatican vault.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
I'd like to see those original Mahabharata texts translated and given to the public, because it's all what I'm telling you about. It's a hidden history. And of course, they took all this art, much of the art that they say in the Renaissance, in the ancient Rome, these statues, these buildings, they were the Tartarian from Tara. It was their culture, and they just took it over and took their plaque. They do this all the time.
Right.
And put up their plaque,
Muslims
Caesar,
did that too,
Pharaoh.
in a lot of areas where they came into Spain and Italy, where it was originally Muslim or later Muslim, So a lot of that goes on, yeah. But I have to give the Catholic credit for maintaining these cathedrals, because we wouldn't have them. If they had not maintained the cathedrals, would they have survived? If they hadn't put the money into the maintenance for 2,000 years, would we have any cathedrals to go into? Or was it not them? Or was it not them?
We can give them that. I mean, okay, let's be honest, because I'm a truth sayer. They went into these healing, free energy, healing, resonating chambers for the people with all this beautiful, uplifting art, and it was open to everyone. And what they did was they disconnected the ethers, so that they were no longer connecting to the higher dimensions, pulling the ethers, giving free energy to people and everything. And then they made them for themselves, because all these parasites, the kings, the queens, like the Buckingham palaces and all this, they shut them off to the public, and they took them for themselves. And the churches, they let people come in. Well, yeah, thank you for that. But they replaced them with their, sorry, I'm going to sound really harsh, their satanic worship type thing of blood sacrifices, the body of Christ becoming a thing, the blood of Christ. I mean, that's and they put like all these artwork of this naked man, hanging, so they
hanging on the cross, that one.
Yeah. And they've done that with Stonehenge. They've done that with all these areas where all the ley lines, they're like the PowerPoints of the planet. And they go in there, and this, for people that don't know, this might like shock you, but they do satanic rituals, blood sacrifices, sacrificing infants. And if you don't believe me, right around the corner from me is Mosia, where I've taken people on my Sacred Sicily pilgrimage, and they take a newborn infant. They have this, and you can see it, it's in the glass case, this little tiny Joker mask made out of terracotta, and they have a procession down to the statue of Baal, and they take the little newborn baby, put the mask on its face, and then kill it, sacrifice it to Baal, to the gods. Right. This has been going on forever.
But who's giving up their baby? Who's giving up their baby to this?
We all did. I had memories of it. We did it for the good of the community. Come on. Oh. These are the thought forms. Oh, yeah. If you're the honored one, you're the chosen one, you get to give your firstborn. Right. So our community we saw that during the whole vaccination thing, get your child vaccinated for the good of the, I got my, because for the good of everyone else. It's a mind control program, you know?
But what
Because
is
I
it?
had memories.
So
Sorry.
what does it do for them? No, it's good. What does it do for them to have this? To have the satanic, is it really, are they getting energy from this, or what are they getting
Yes,
from this? Okay. What are they
it
getting?
it creates loosh,
And
okay?
what is
Or
loosh? Yeah.
okay, loosh is okay. So what happens is that they need to feed off of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already said that, but they can't feed off of love and they can't just drain that because that's a high frequency. They're
Right.
like low frequencies. I mean, think of like these, pond scum bottom feeders on the
Mm-hmm.
lowest,
The
the depths
negative
of the
energy, the
ocean that have,
dense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they have to distort and pollute the energy frequency so that they can assimilate it in terror, fear, sorrow,
Yeah.
rage. Though, and so
Negativity.
that's
Yeah.
why on
Yeah.
this planet we've had all the wars are for them to feed their loosh, all the sacrifices, all the murders, all the sorrow, all the anger, and they are, as David Icke said, I had him on my show, it's assimilation, but not just assimilation, it's assimilation to create negative emotions to feed, horrors to feed them their loosh. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
So
what it's been.
why now? Is you said that it is a time of ascension. Why now? And why do you believe it's a
Yeah,
time of ascension?
that's the good news, guys. This is like, I bring you tidings of great joy. I mean, this is the best like story, but the greatest story of all as of 2012. And, a lot of people noticed like the Mayan calendar, which still
Right.
is kind of distorted because it was a much higher calendar. The Eliani calendar it was called, but now all this information has been sought out and destroyed so we would know about it, which is why I'm talking all the time about it, because we need to
Mm-hmm.
know about it. The calendars have pointed to this. I showed the ascension, the Yugos, that's in the Sanskrit. The Native Americans, they know it. We talked about the Hopi prophecy. I've been listening to like Sasha Stone's been doing a lot where he's been traveling around interviewing a lot of indigenous people, whether we're talking about the Maoris in New Zealand, the shamans in Mexico, the Hopi in Arizona, all over the planet. They all have in their ancient texts that their ancestors were able to hold portions of, or if not, tell
Right.
each other,
They just
verbally,
had
because
the
most
head.
of it.
They just had the headlines of the white buffalo being born, but I swear to God, I thought the
Yes.
white buffalo was born 15 years ago. So I don't know. But it's big headlines at the moment, the white buffalo, and this is part of the prophecy. But I don't know what the prophecy is.
The
They never
prophecy
really
is this,
said that. Yeah.
that we're in a fail safe, that we're in an ascension cycle, that we're returning to source, that we are, and this is a big
Mhm.
one because it has to do with the architecture. I talked about the spirals. We've
Right.
The true spiral is a Krystala spiral of life, which spirals upward, which is life-giving. They've been using the Fibonacci spiral. They've connected it into ours.
What
And
is that? You
Fibonacci,
have to explain that to me.
okay.
I don't know.
Fibonacci. Well, most people that know sacred geometry,
Yeah.
unfortunately, sacred geometry is the fallen geometry. Like the flower of life is really called the bloom of doom because it's actually holds you back from ascending to the higher dimensions.
It keeps the energy
The
low. I mean, or
Yeah,
contained.
it keeps you
Contained.
locked in. It's not infinite. It's finite. It doesn't bring you back to source. It maintains the veil,
Mm-hmm.
in the prison
Right.
matrix.
The
And
status
and
quo,
the
basically.
yeah, yes. And the
Yeah.
Fibonacci, not chi, like chi, Reiki is energy. So it's not, it's a fib, it's a lie. It makes you
Oh, I
think it's
see.
a
Yeah.
and it's so powerful that it has over powered our own natural architecture. For example, trees and nautilus shells and everything have that Fibonacci, which is correcting itself now to the Krystala, because the Fibonacci diminishes the number. It doesn't go back to source. It takes away, so it's parasitic basically in nature.
Yeah.
So that one they have separated. So now this goes to your first question when you said, why isn't everybody getting it? Okay.
Right.
So
And I
why
still am not clear on the why now. I'm still not, even though everybody prophesied this, but why now? What about the energies or whatever? Why now? And then why is not everybody getting it? So I got two questions in there.
why now? Because it's now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like
So basically, why not? Right? Why not now?
it's.
Yeah.
I mean, the time is now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you go, let's say it's dinner time and you're sitting there having dinner. Well, why are we having dinner now? It's time to have dinner.
Okay.
But we have been,
Yeah.
in an artificial time loop. We've been repeating history. This time that we think is time is not the organic timelines. We've been doing the same thing like Groundhog Day over and over and getting deeper and deeper in karma because
just listening. Yeah.
But the good news is it's correcting itself. It's correcting itself. So I'm an eternal optimist. I believe that hopefully everybody will choose that.
Yeah.
Now, everyone has free will, so some people won't, and some people are slower. Just like I was a teacher, and I always taught to the few fast, just not way high up in there. But you just without judgment. There are some students that are just, and that's part of our job. We're the change. We're the role models. That's all we can do. We can just create a new system for them so they can have, hopefully, and it's going to take several years, organic years, maybe 1,000 years to get back to where we were living, as Christic beings,
Are we going to be living in this chaos? What I call chaos. Our world is very chaotic, and it's very, we're very split, if right now. So
that's the Fibonacci and the Krystala Spiral. The more you are on the Krystala Spiral, the more your life is like a magic carpet. There's not chaos, there's oneness, there's unity, there's love, there's manifestation, there's abundance, and that feels good. The more that's how you can tell. It's your barometer. If you're on the Fibonacci, the downward spiral of death, you're caught up, you're feeling sick, you're confused, you're feeling a lot of this loose stuff like anger and fear is a huge
chaos
one. Chaos, and it is chaos because you're looking at a world that's being destroyed, that's destroying itself. But
that's what we're watching. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't spend a lot of time there, so I don't know. I don't watch the news. I look out at the ocean, the Mediterranean Sea.
But you're still aware. I'm sure you're still aware of what is going on in the earth.
I don't pay very much of my attention to that world because it's like you can watch a little. All my energy goes to this little flower. I water it. It's growing every day. I make sure it's getting enough sun, not too much sun. I'm spending all my energy with this beautiful, beautiful flower. Whereas on the other, there might be like a shitstorm happening. I mean, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, okay. But I'm not going to put my focus there.
But some things come into our lives, like the pandemic, and how that rocked the world. So some things do come into our lives and we're not able to ignore. How do you deal with that?
Well, in my book, I go through all this, and I had a choice, and I chose with the scandemic. I chose to be very, very vocal at that time, very, very outspoken because I knew exactly what was going on. I was here in Italy. My computer had broken. Ironically, haha, an Apple computer.
You go through a lot of computers.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
had an iPad. It was a broken one. And so I got up every day telling people the truth, what was really happening. I was saying, these people are not dying. They're putting up 5G towers everywhere, and the Sicilians had no clue about vaccinations. They just knew they couldn't go to work unless they got one. And I would
Yeah.
say in every language I could, I would go to the vaccination centers and scream, prima non nocere, don't do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
And I chose that. And I in my book I called a red pill enema, because I go into every institution and say how, in my own journey as a teacher, wanting to do really good, and then realizing that the supervisor was stealing from the school, the students, and putting all the children in my class, but not really giving them what he was being funded. I mean, in Hollywood, how I went up there to be an actress, I was handed a porno script. I go through it, and then
Mm-hmm.
my personal journey. And I think we all, that I wanted to do that because I think everyone can relate to the good fight, always getting you start off with all these wonderful ideas, especially when you're young, and then you
Oh,
just
yeah.
end
And
up
then you
like,
dumb down. Yeah. You get world weary. But what was the purpose
world
of the
war is so much.
pandemic in the world? What was the purpose?
Well, okay, so I've mentioned several times genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And our true nature is that we have 12 strands of DNA, and that last 12th strand connects us directly to infinite source.
Right.
And the fallen angelics chose to not connect that last strand, so they can get to 11.5, so they can be very powerful, but not,
Not
surrender their
make it.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, thy will be done. And that's the thing, to be really powerful, you surrender to the will of divine, and you realize we're all one. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not all about you. It's about service to others. So our genetics are now coming back online. We're getting activations from the sun every day. The more you can get out of the AI world, and I know we're
Yeah.
using, internet right now, but I do internet, and then I go ground myself in the nature. I'm always saying the cure to COVID's nature. Get in the forest, swim in the seas. I go to hot volcanic springs, eat real food. And
Mm-hmm.
they've
The
been
majority of the
transhumanizing.
world lives in cities, though. That's the problem. The majority of the world lives in cities.
Not I don't know, not in my world, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would not live in a city. I can't. I When I did my book tour in US, I was so ill. I had to go sit in a infrared sauna every day, and even when I got my body back,
Uh-huh.
it cut me off. I did not have my intuitive abilities, because with all that, stuff, as America's, I think, is the worst. It's just keeping you in the low. It's the veil. It's
Yeah.
keeping you in the low frequency veil. It's the veil of low frequencies. And the shot, what it did was it put all that inside of you, that technology inside of you. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was they had a CRISPR gene that I did a lot of research on, and DARPA, who created the internet and also operated on me. Okay. DARPA has been working with gene modification for
Mm-hmm.
eons, for years. Okay, let's just and what happens is they would take a piece of the genome and change it, and then they would, modify it and inject it back into you, and it would grab onto the genome. So it would modify, the idea was to modify the human genome.
Mm-hmm.
And, I quoted a Mr. Delgato, who said, once you modify the genetic structure of something, it is not that thing anymore.
Right.
You know,
Right. Yeah, you
because
become
they're no
something
longer
else. Yeah.
human. You
Mm-hmm.
become something else. It's like you modify an apple, it's no longer an apple. You modify a cat, it becomes a dog. That's how you change
Right.
things. Is the
Right.
DNA is your software. It's your blueprint of what you are. You need to change the blueprint. So that's what the real therapy was about. And then they put all kinds of other stuff in it, graphite, to connect you to the 5G that they were laying all over the planet.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I mean, even here in Sicily, which I moved down there to get away from, because I'm very sensitive. So that's what the pandemic was about, on the fallen angelics agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is, for me, after I did my job,
Yeah.
I was able to just relax during lockdown. I did have a really bad accident when I moved into my villa, and I was operated on because I tore my ligament by a Dr. DARPA who did a Dr. DARPA, and he did a number on my leg. I mean, I almost died, but I'm
Wow.
getting back. So yeah, it was really bad. So it wasn't all wonderful, but it ended up being wonderful for me because I learned what it's like to not, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get my hair done. I couldn't go into a cafe. I couldn't go into a restaurant. I could just buy food, barely,
Hmm.
And you know what? I was so happy. I really disconnected from 3D Earth, and I
Uh-huh.
spent all my time like meditating. I met so many different people. That's when I started going on with a talk show that ended up starting then Jesse Howe, the Truthathon. We did a Truthathon, and that's where we all started merging. Us who
Hmm.
saying, "What's going on here?" We saw the wheat separated from the chaff. We saw the two different.
Right.
Or how are we doing with time here?
Well, you know
And I
what?
think it was a good thing. I think go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're actually coming to the end of the show,
Okay.
and I know you have someplace you want to be, but I'm thinking, well, we're ending on good news. This is great. This is great.
Yes. And
Well,
the good news is, yes, it's all been just once you can see the duality, you need to know you can't bypass it. You have to know how bad things, and I know how bad the agenda was. I really
hmm,
do. It was a real
yeah.
dark, dirty time. And then the light, but then you arise to, and I'm in Sicily, I'm in what's called the magic triangle. The apex of the triangle is when you come into the higher dimensions and you realize we're all one. It was all a
Uh-huh.
story. It was all part of this. And you know what? It's been a good thing because my mission now is to start trying to create eco communities now. I want to trying to buy land, and a lot of people are creating new earth communities where we extrapolate ourselves from the economy, from the food, from we educate our own children. We create a beautiful utopia of not a dystopia, and that horrible thing and how bad things are getting is very motivating
Hmm.
because sometimes for humans we have to have it really bad so that you
Right.
can't say I can't buy this food anymore, it's making me sick. So you actually start to grow your own food. So you start to heal yourself so you don't go into the fallen medical system, so you start to educate your own children and having them instead of having them brainwashed, so you start to
Right.
go inward to your own divine spirituality rather than listening to the propaganda of the religions and so on.
Right. Right. So where can everybody get hold of you, though? How can they get hold
Oh,
of you for this?
the best way is my website, www.infinitehuman.com.
Hmm.
Infinitehuman.com. Everything's there. My book's there. My book's on Amazon and I've got it everywhere now. You can get it in bookstores through Ingram. And the my Voice American talk show is on there too, the Infinite Human talk
Yeah,
show.
which is
It's on
great. On
Voice America because
voiceamerica.com, right? Um,
we're
yeah.
soul sisters.
Yes, yes, yes.
Speakers.
And do you have anything coming up? You talked about doing tours over there in Italy and
Yes, yes.
mhm.
I'm going to do a Sacred Sicily pilgrimage, but just for a few people. But
Right.
you can find out about it on my website in September, which is the best time to come to Sicily.
Mhm.
And it's really amazing. I'm on Facebook, Elizabeth Monroy, and I have a Being an Infinite Human Facebook group, and the talk shows on there and everything. And then I'm also going to go on a cruise with David Emery, who was on my talk show around the Mediterranean. I think it's through Lazarus Initiative with Sasha Stone, but I'm not putting it on, but I'm going to just go and be on it, and I'm
Oh
going to also
yeah.
film it. And
Mhm.
interview people because we're going to like the pyramids, and we're going to Turkey, and we're going to Greece, and we're going to Cyprus, all around the Mediterranean, and
That
he's going to
sounds
talk
great.
about the true
Uh-huh.
history of these places.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think, and I'm
Sounds
gonna make
great.
I want to make a film about that so people can hear the true history in the places in front of the pyramids or wherever we are. So
Yeah. That's fabulous. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. I know you've got to well, on your way to dinner. Yeah. So thanks so much for
yeah,
being on the
yeah.
show. I've really enjoyed
Well,
it and appreciate your being here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And the best is yet to come. So we'll have to stay connected because
Oh, definitely.
I just feel
Yeah.
like our tribes are gathering. We're meeting each other now, but we have huge projects to do together, which are going to be exciting and fun.
Good, good. It does sound good. All right. Thanks so
All right.
much. Bye-bye.
Ciao for now. Bye.